Ever get this feeling? Like someone's got their thumb on the scale of your world.
I know that feeling.
You're not alone. Listeners sent in some seriously thought-provoking pieces this week, comparing, our modern world to those classic dystopian novels.
Okay, the big ones.
Exactly. We're talking 1984 by Orwell
Always relevant.
and Huxley's Brave New
It's
World.
a different kind of dystopia.
And you know what? Some of the parallels are, well, they're eerie. Downright eerie.
Yeah, it's less about which dystopia got the future, right? And more about recognizing how both of those books, they envision methods of control, and we see those methods echoed today in a way.
Right, like that photo of you rocking that band T-shirt, and then bam, the next day, targeted ads for their new album. Like, how
Everywhere.
Orwellian surveillance meets good old-fashioned consumerism. It's enough to make you want to wear a tinfoil hat.
I've been tempted.
But before we disappear down that rabbit hole, let's start with the source material, the stuff you guys sent in. It dives straight into how today's world, it's like we're almost mirroring 1984.
Okay, how so?
All this data collection, algorithms that feel, I don't know, they know what you'll do before you even do it.
It's that digital panopticon effect, except instead of a looming tower, it's this invisible web of data. It's tracking our every move online. And it's not just about feeling watched either. It's the subtle pressure it puts on free speech.
On independent thought.
Yeah.
It's like, are we even really forming our own opinions anymore? Or are those carefully curated feeds, like subtly nudging us in a specific direction? And the source material, some of the examples are chilling.
Like what?
Facial recognition, social credit systems.
It makes you think.
It makes you think.
Right. It's like, think about how algorithms curate our online experiences. They're constantly feeding us content that's similar to what we've already engaged with.
So you never see the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They create these echo chambers, these filter bubbles. So it's no wonder we're seeing increased polarization. We're rarely challenged to consider different viewpoints. It's like,
You're stuck.
kinda.
You're stuck, yeah. And it makes you think about figures like, okay, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, how dissent is often met with swift, and some might argue, disproportionate consequences.
That's true.
And then there's that curious lack of widespread media coverage on things like the Panama Papers leak.
Interesting example.
Makes you wonder what else is being, I don't know, swept under the rug.
Yeah. Right. And it's important to clarify the source material. It's not pointing fingers. It's not advocating for one specific political stance or another. It's simply presenting these examples as like potential illustrations, how information control, whether intentional or not, can manifest in our digital age.
Absolutely. And we always say this, but we're not here to tell you what to think, just to lay out the information as presented and let you draw your own conclusions.
Right.
But this is where things take a turn. Because we've been talking about 1984, which is very much about overt control, right?
Big Brother.
Big Brother's watching. Huxley's Brave New World is different. It presents a much subtler form of societal manipulation.
Okay, how so?
Pleasure.
Interesting.
It's a stark contrast to the stark oppression of 1984.
Because it's all about seduction, right? We're drowning in information, chasing that next dopamine hit on social media, terrified of missing out.
The FOMO is real.
It's real, and in a way, we're conditioned to crave that constant stimulation.
Always scrolling, always consuming. It's like we're hardwired for distraction.
And amidst all that noise, our critical thinking just takes a back seat. We become passive recipients of whatever's thrown at us, whether it's accurate or not.
This ties directly to Huxley's chilling prediction, right? In Brave New World, people, they don't even realize they're in a dystopia. They're constantly distracted, placated. There's this steady stream of manufactured pleasure. But here's where things get really interesting. Remember that term dharma that we sometimes stumble upon?
You're sure?
Turns out it might be a surprisingly relevant guide for navigating this modern-day dystopian mashup.
Okay, now I'm really interested.
So we're back, still grappling with this idea
Yeah.
that our world, well, it might be drifting towards a blend of, Orwellian surveillance and Huxleyan seduction.
Quite a combo.
It's enough to make you want to, toss your smartphone into a lake and take up alpaca farming.
Drastic, but I get it. And our source material, it doesn't sugarcoat it. It actually says the danger of the democratic capitalist world is that it keeps pointing towards that distant enemy, the 1984. It prevents us from, while cocooning us inside a brave new world.
Wow. Deep stuff. But before we all run for the hills, metaphorically speaking, of course, I'm curious about this whole Dharma angle.
Yeah.
Because our source material presents it as, like, a roadmap through this, complex terrain we're talking about, a way to maybe forge a future that's grounded in consciousness.
Interesting.
What do you make of that?
I find it surprisingly relevant, actually. Because where do we even begin to untangle this whole mess?
Right.
It starts with awareness. That's the first step. We have to recognize those subtle ways, these dystopian influences, how they creep into our lives, often disguised as, I don't know, convenience or entertainment.
It's like when you're scrolling online,
Right.
right? And you suddenly realize, wait a minute, I've been sucked into this echo chamber
Exactly.
where all the opinions, they sound eerily similar.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask yourself, are these even my own thoughts? Or are they being, like, subtly shaped by these algorithms?
Right. These algorithms that are designed to keep us hooked.
To keep us engaged.
Addicted, even.
Yeah.
And that's where the Dharmika concept of viveka comes in, I think.
Okay, Viveka.
The ability to discern, to see through all that fog, all that noise, and really think for ourselves.
So not just acknowledging the problem,
Yeah.
but, like, actively flexing those critical thinking muscles.
Yes.
It's like saying to the algorithm, okay, algorithm, you think you've got me all figured out. I'm hitting the pause button for a second. Is this really true? Is this serving me, or is this serving someone else's agenda?
Now you're getting it. That's where our power lies, you see. When we start asking those questions, we stop being passive consumers of information.
We take control.
We become active participants in shaping our understanding of the world.
I love that. Becoming, like, conscious architects of our own information diet, so to speak.
I like that.
But let's be real. The internet's a buffet. An endless buffet of information.
Overwhelmed.
It can be totally overwhelming. How do we even know where to start?
Yeah.
How do we figure out what's real, what's true, what's actually worth our attention?
It's a journey, for sure. It's not a quick fix. But our source material, it offers some guidance here. It highlights this concept of satyavakana, which basically means seeking and speaking the truth.
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable.
That's easier said than done, though, right?
I
mean, especially these days. Everyone's got an opinion.
It's true.
Things can get, heated very quickly.
It requires humility, a willingness to admit that, we might be wrong.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
It happens. And that those beliefs that we're holding on to so tightly, they might need a little adjusting. It's about being open to diverse perspectives, even and maybe especially those that challenge our own.
It's so true, though, because so much of what we see online, it's about, seeking validation.
Fitting in.
Not rocking the boat too much.
Right.
Makes you wonder if maybe that's part of what fuels this constant need for, like, online validation, this fear of missing out. We were talking about it earlier.
It's all connected. And, the source material, it puts it beautifully. It says, real laughter replaces digital emojis, and the warmth of shared vulnerability melts away the walls of isolation.
Wow.
It's a good reminder that we're wired for real connection.
Genuine connection.
When we try to fill that void with these, like, fleeting digital interactions, it's never quite enough.
Never enough.
Yeah.
It's like junk food.
Yeah.
It gives you a little something.
A little hit.
But you're still left feeling empty.
Empty.
So where do we go from here? We're talking about cultivating awareness. We're talking about critical thinking, seeking the truth, nurturing real-world connections.
It's a good start.
It's a good start. What else can we add to this toolkit for, a less dystopian, a more fulfilling existence?
Well, it's not just about what we think, right? It's also about what we do. Our actions, both online and offline, they have real-world consequences. Every click, every share, every purchase, it all adds up.
It's like that butterfly effect.
Oh.
Our choices, they ripple outwards. They shape the world around us in ways we might not even realize.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of svadharma can be so empowering.
Okay to Svadharma. Tell me more.
It's about aligning our actions with our values.
Yep.
When we live in accordance with our own unique purpose.
It's like we're being more intentional.
Yes.
We move from mindless consumption to conscious creation. We're shaping a more meaningful existence for ourselves and the world around us.
Precisely. And that, I believe, is the ultimate antidote to both Orwellian control and Huxleyan distraction, living consciously, embracing truth and responsibility. We become the authors of our own destiny.
Oh, I like that. But let's bring it down to earth for a moment. How do we take this, high-minded philosophy and actually apply it? What does that look like day to day? to make those conscious choices in a world that seems like it's designed to keep us distracted. It's one thing to talk about this idea of, like, living consciously.
Right.
But how do we actually put it into practice? It's like we're surrounded by this whirlwind,
A lot.
information overload, pressure to consume. Where do we even begin
Hmm.
to carve out that space for intentionality?
It's about being deliberate with our choices,
Yeah.
making choices that actually align with, the values that we've been talking about. Remember that concept, aparigraha?
Okay, remind me. Aparigraha. That's the one about non-attachment, right?
Exactly. And it's about recognizing how much of our modern world, it thrives on keeping us trapped
Trap.
in that cycle of wanting, craving, acquiring.
Oh, yeah.
We're bombarded with these messages, right? That happiness is just one purchase away, one upgrade, one shiny new thing.
Oh, I know that cycle all too well. If I just had that, then I'd be... It's so easy to get, like, swept up in that. But you're saying aparigraha is about, what, stepping off the treadmill?
Exactly. Becoming mindful, intentional about our consumption.
Mhm.
Do we really need that thing? Or are we just chasing a feeling, a fleeting feeling at that? It's about choosing, experiences over possessions, supporting businesses that are ethical, sustainable. It's about aligning our spending with those values that we're talking about.
So we're talking about applying that whole conscious consumer lens to, well, everything.
In a way, yes. And that takes us to the digital realm, which might be the trickiest terrain of all.
Because...
Well, remember how we were talking about the dangers of social media? Those algorithms, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're designed to keep us hooked.
Addicted.
And that's where this idea of conscious engagement comes in. The source material uses this really interesting metaphor of a dance.
Okay, dance?
It says, the first movement in this dance is a deliberate unfurling of awareness. We have to remember, we're not just passive consumers, right, of whatever's thrown at us online. We have agency. We have a choice.
So being aware of, like, how much time we spend scrolling,
Yes.
what
Yeah.
we're actually consuming with our eyeballs.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, is this feeding my soul or is it just empty calories?
Exactly. Choosing quality over quantity. And, it goes even deeper than that. Being discerning about the platforms that we choose.
Like, what are they actually selling?
Yes. Do they value our privacy as users? Are they transparent about their algorithms? Or are they profiting from our data, perpetuating those cycles of distraction and manipulation that, we're trying to escape?
It's like we have to ask ourselves, are my digital choices lining up with my values? Just like my purchasing decisions. Even if it means, like, disconnecting from platforms that don't. Even if it means missing out on that latest viral trend.
You're getting it. It's about reclaiming our time.
Mhm.
Our attention, they're precious resources. When we invest them wisely in experiences and relationships, in our passions, we cultivate a life of meaning.
We become creators, not just consumers.
Yes. And it's not about perfection. It's about progress, making small, intentional choices each day. Because every click, every share, every conversation, every action, it all matters. It all weaves the fabric of our reality.
I like that, but it's also kind of, I don't know, daunting. It's like we've been handed the keys to the kingdom, but we haven't quite figured out how to use them.
It's a journey, not a destination. But when we recognize our power to shape our own reality, we stop being victims of circumstance. We become active participants in crashing a future that reflects our values, our deepest aspirations.
And that's a future worth striving for, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not about, like, achieving some perfect utopian ideal. It's about showing up every day.
Yeah.
Making conscious choices, nudging the world bit by bit towards something, I don't know, brighter.
And who knows, maybe, just maybe, by embracing these principles of awareness, critical thinking, and conscious action, we can create a future that's not just less dystopian, but a future that's actually filled with, connection, meaning, and joy.
Now that is a future I can get behind. So as you navigate this crazy, complex world of ours, remember, keep those thinking caps on, stay curious, and most importantly, keep dancing towards that light. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.